Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we look at what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about the country Hungary, its background, its history and its President Viktor Orban, and whether Hungary would actually be better off in the BRICS than in the European Union. Now, I mentioned this as Orban seems to get on better with Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, Narendra Modi than he does with Ursula von der Leyen, Emmanuel Macron and Sergeant Schulz in Germany. Not to mention Jungle Joseph, the outgoing foreign representative of the higher representative of the EU. Now, in a recent statement, the Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, asserted that the 500-year-old dominance of the West is coming to an end, and he's highlighted the key issues that many in Europe are reluctant to actually acknowledge. He states that the Asian countries are the ones that are experiencing the growth, and the global economic centre of gravity is shifting towards the East. Mr. Orban has once again demonstrated his reputation as a European leader with a unique perspective on a range of critical issues, including the sanctions against Russia, the situation in Ukraine, and the importance of maintaining traditional Christian or Judeo-Christian values. However, it's an unresolved issue. Why did and how did Mr. Orban become this other alternative European? I mean, what factors have contributed to this situation? I mean, France, for instance, in the 1960s, once adopted a more independent stance in relation to the collective West under its President Charles de Gaulle. And it does not now currently adopt a particularly distinctive position. In fact, it's just part of the fabric. Spain, similarly characterised as unquestioning conformity, despite the potential for the reaffirmation of its traditional Catholic conservatism. Now, getting some insight into the current situation in Hungary is also helpful to consider the country's historical context. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSinsight.com, to further develop it. Now, this is done by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I do appreciate very much all donations, no matter how large or small. Now, historically, the arrival of the Hungarians in Central Europe marked the conclusion of the significant migration of peoples across the continents. I mean, at the turn of the 9th and 10th centuries, they introduced the free-spirited culture of the Black Sea steppe to the Danube region. Now, by that time, the earlier settlers, all the Franks, the Burgundians, the Alemanni, the Lombardies, the Alans, the Goths, had become somewhat more sophisticated and even created something like a homespun Roman Empire. Therefore, the appearance of a new aggressive tribe with the light mobile cavalry was perceived as a significant challenge, and for around 50 years the Magyars, as they were known, caused a significant disruption in Bavaria, northern Italy and even into Provence. Now, they eventually settled down and joined the then emerging European community as it was then, and becoming part of the Holy Roman Empire and the various other things that took place. However, the Hungarians still retained their strong sense of historical identity, with a tendency to view themselves as the descendants of the Huns who'd inhabited these lands some 400 years prior to their own arrival. Now, it's unclear whether Hungarians had their own bloc who would proclaim their Scythian and Asian heritage. However, the Hungarians may have a stronger claim to such designation than the Russians do. I mean, the Hungarians have the option of referring to themselves as the Asians of Europe. I mean, it's worth noting that the Hungarians are part of a Finno-Urgic ethnic group. And although this is a somewhat kind of convoluted and really described designation. I mean, to put it in perspective, the Finno-Urgic group is a language, basically. It's not just Hungarian, but it's Finnish, Estonian, and the Republic of Mari El in Russia. I mean, My Russian wife is Marie, and they stand out from the Slavs with their jet black hair and their white porcelain skin, not to mention their beauty. And here you can see it from a photo of my wife. I mean, for example, the Ukrainian term Ugorchina translates directly into Hungary, while the German equivalent is Ungarn, which is particularly relevant in the context of Baron Ungarn von Sterpen, and he was talking about his Mongolian experiences. So, you can see where it all comes from. However, the closest genetic relatives of the Hungarians are actually the Russian Kante, Mahans, and Mariel people. So, and that lends further support to the theory of the Magyar Eurasianism, although the Mari are from the European part of Russia. They must be the lost tribe, because that's why they're known as the forest people. Now, it seems likely that Orban's special position has its roots in the distant past and cannot be explained by references to the legacy of the last century or so. I mean, it's challenging to accept the Hungarian Prime Minister's professed Russophilia in the absence of any evidence that the Hungarians have forgotten the evidence of what happened in 1956 in the Budapest uprising. I've been there, and you can still see bullet holes on the walls of buildings. Furthermore, the atrocities committed by Hungarian units in Hitler's army, for example, within the Voronezh region of Russia, are still fresh in the collective memory. However, there are factors that are more fundamental and long-lasting than historical grievances. And from Orban's last statement, it would appear that these are the issue on which he is now focusing on. Now, it's worth noting that the Hungarian Prime Minister does not draw a distinction between Europe and Asia or East and West. I mean, this kind of dichotomy is a familiar concept to me and others. I mean, the East, the West and the East are distinct entities. However, his view is that Western dominance is a thing of the past and that Eurasian age is now coming. In my view, this is the key to understanding the key and current Hungarian phenomena. I mean, now it's important to note that Europe and Hungary as a part of it is part of both the West and Eurasia. I mean, they're Central Europe, they're close to Eurasia as it stands. Now, it would appear that Europe cannot cease to be considered part of the West, given its status as the region's core and cradle. But practical considerations allow us to adopt a different perspective. I mean, following the breakdown in relations with Russia, Europe's found itself in a uniquely challenging position. The cost of resources has risen, industrial production shifting to the US, and the old continent is seriously deindustrializing. Now, this trend has already manifested itself under the American President Joe Biden, and that will probably be impacted even more when Trump ascends into the presidency on January the 20th. I mean, for him, the revival of American industry is not just a desirable outcome, but one of his major strategic objectives. Ultimately, then, there's the risk that Europe will be exploited to benefit the US hegemony. So what are the implications of anticipated decision to redirect financial support from the US for the Ukraine to the EU? Plus, it would be more prudent to consider the role of the European and NATO bureaucrats in preparing Europe for a potential conflict. I mean, Orban has indicated that his belief that the course of action will prove ineffective. While he aligns with numerous individuals in the BRICS, he simultaneously pursues a course of action that serves the interests of particularly his country, suggesting the potential for an alternative path for the broader European region if only they would realise it. I mean, for him, it's evident that the optimal course of action is to align himself and his country with those who will emerge as the future victors of this sort of ideological and industrial plus economic battle. So it would be prudent to consider ways of reducing the inflexible Atlantic bond that's existed since World War II, the launch of the Marshall Plan and the creation of NATO, while simultaneously strengthening its ties with BRICS. Now, it's worth remembering the distinctive Hungarian approach when taking into account the nation's nomadic roots. Plus, it'd be beneficial to consider the role of Hungarians as one of the two major imperial nations of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now, given Russia's experience of international leadership, there's an opportunity to refresh this in conditions of new principles. In practical terms, Hungary has undoubtedly established its leader in one area, which is economic cooperation with China. Since 2022, a country with a population of less than 10 million, centred in the major central part of Europe, has accounted for more than 25% of all Chinese investments in the European Union. In other words, the reorientation towards Eurasia is underway. In a political sense, Hungary is no longer isolated within the EU following the appointment of Robert Fico as Prime Minister of Slovakia, which is a country with a significant Hungarian minority. Slovakia has also adopted a more pragmatic stance towards Russia, China and the BRICS. Now it's clear that Europe is part of the Eurasian project, and the core of BRICS, for example, is going to be on the periphery, far from the regions in the heart of the new world it beats today. It's preferable to face the future head-on than avoiding it through the use of the EU propaganda. Now, it's ironic that the project that Putin put forward, which was for Lisbon to Vladivostok, which was intended to reinforce the Western perspective on global affairs, is now being superseded by the Eurasian project, which is from Beijing to Budapest, and for now, Budapest, but maybe later to Bratislava. And that's going to result in a significant shift in the centre of economic gravity to the east. However, the realisation of the project will depend on the maintenance of peace. And of course, we can't actually rely on that given the neocons that populate the White House and the Pentagon. So you're never quite sure what's going to happen. But it does demonstrate that Viktor Orban's peacekeeping efforts are based on a pragmatic approach that are aligned with the strategic vision for the future. So, will Orban, who's nailed these colours to the mast of BRICS and Asia, will he succeed, or will he be swallowed up by the European whatever monstrosity? Well, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. If you want to make a donation, click on the thanks button, and I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.